guys, welcome or welcome back to our Dutch farmhouse. If you're new here, my name is Naomi, and once again, we are having a stunning sunrise in the beautiful countryside of the Netherlands. You may have noticed that we drink a lot of tea in this house. Our teapot pretty much has warm tea in it all day for anyone to grab, but we also do enjoy a good cappuccino. Now, we have become annoyingly picky about this because we pretty much make the cappuccino exactly how we like it. So whenever we order a cappuccino at a restaurant or a cafe, we are often a little disappointed, but it is a bit of a process and we both have a very clear role in it. So Stefan makes the coffee. He knows exactly how many grams and how hard to press down and how long to let the machine run. And then I froth the milk and I finish off the cappuccino. This seems like a lot of work, but we do this once a day at most. And it's a fun little activity that we do together. And because we don't really drink any other coffee during the day, it really isn't a problem. It is cold. It's officially November, so I am back in my fluffy sweater. I have a little DIY project planned because this, as you may know, is our living room. You may have seen it in last week's video where I did an updated house tour of the entire farmhouse. But when you walk into our living room, those two windows over there are the first thing I see. And I absolutely love those windows. Those windows are actually one of the very first things I completely fell in love with when we viewed this house. So even before we bought it, I really love the style of those windows. But I think they can be dressed up a little bit on the inside. I think they could be a little bit more elegant, and I definitely want to hide those two ugly radiators that are underneath those beautiful windows. Here's the plan. Now you may have noticed, but these radiators are different. By the way, there's a radiator underneath every window, and there are 6 windows. So we are really hoping that with the installation of the underfloor heating here, they might not be as necessary as they were, but obviously we're gonna have to live with them for a winter just to be sure. So for now, they're just gonna stay, but they are not all the same. And that looks a little bit weird. These are not even the same color. But even if they were, I think it would be better if we could hide them. So I want to build a very simple radiator cover that we can just put in front of it. I'm not gonna attach it to anything because I wanna be able to take it out and reach all of the knobs if I ever wanna adjust anything. And I really would like to build it from all scrap wood that I have in the shed because I have a lot and I just don't want to buy anything new until I've kind of used up a little bit of that. The thing that makes that a little bit tricky is that I want to build 2 of the same things, and so I'm going to have to find wood that is enough or enough of the same wood to build 2 of the same things. So it might be a little bit of a fun challenge. I'm going to go into the shed and see what I have and what I can work with, and then we're just gonna think up a little bit of a design, I think. So the idea that I had in my head was very simple. I would make a square kind of face frame with thin wooden slats, and then I would staple a piece of linen to the back of that frame to cover the front but still let some warm air through. And then the sides I would just make with whatever wood I could find. I also plan to leave the top completely open because I don't think you're gonna see it very well in the end, and that way the heat can still go up through the windowsill. So I had some trouble finding the thinner slats that I had in mind, and I also didn't have pieces that were long enough to span the width of the window. So what I did have were a lot of these, which are thicker. These are 44 by 44 millimeters, but because these pieces are so thick, I didn't want the fabric to be behind this and have like this big a piece of wood in front of it. That is not what I don't think that would be very pretty. So then I thought, what would happen if I put the fabric on the front and then finish it off with a little bit of a trim piece or something? But then I also didn't have the trim pieces. So that went out the window very fast. What if I build a frame and just span the fabric all the way around the frame and you won't actually see any wood at all? Now I would have to see if I have enough fabric, and additionally it would mean that I wouldn't have to paint anything because it's all going to be covered. I don't think that is a terrible idea. Oh no, I would not have enough fabric. Yes, I would have. It's 140. No. Let me do some more calculating. Now I figured if I wrap the whole thing in fabric, then it wouldn't matter at all what kind of wood I would use for the structure underneath, and that gave me some more options, but as I said, I didn't have enough of this fabric to do that, but I would have enough if I only covered the front frame. And then I realized that I had some very specific thin boards somewhere that might just fit for the sides. This would totally work. So I don't have enough fabric to wrap all the way around, but I would have enough fabric to just wrap around this little bit. But how are we gonna attach the two? Don't want to screw into fabric. That usually kind of messes things up. I can make this work. We're just gonna get started. We're gonna see how this is gonna go. I realized that I had spent a lot of time thinking about this project and how I was going to do it when I could have started so much earlier. I find that whenever I do a project where I know exactly what I need to do, I go really, really fast. But if I don't, like in this case, usually, of course, I would think of what I want to make and then I would get the materials and just assemble exactly the way that I had planned. But now I am changing the design according to what kind of materials I can find. So it's a little bit more tricky, and apparently that made me procrastinate like crazy. I decided in the end to attach the entire frame before adding the fabric because I really couldn't figure out a good way to attach the sides otherwise, and I kind of hoped that I would be able to stretch the fabric far enough to go all the way around. Now that turned out not to be the case, but I figured I could finish off the sides with a piece of trim, but also I am planning on doing curtains on either side of the windows as well, so it might just hide any of the imperfections on the sides anyway. So I'm just gonna keep going, and I'll just fix any issues as I come to them. I'm sure you'll be very surprised to hear this, but I don't like it. I don't know what's wrong with me lately. I think there are a couple of things very, very wrong. First of all, it's too high. I don't like how it goes all the way up to the windowsill. It just looks a little weird. Second, don't like the fabric being completely wrapped around it. The original idea was that it would be the color of the wall and then only the fabric piece would be a different color, the fabric color. I don't like how it looks now. And I think maybe it needs feet. Now, obviously, if I'm gonna be so picky, I'm not gonna be able to do it with all kinds of scrap wood that I have laying around. So I ran out of staples, so I couldn't continue with the second one anyway. So I had to go to the hardware store to get more staples, and I figured I'll just get the wood that I actually had in mind. Wait, let me get it. These are 10 pieces of the thinner wood that I had in mind before starting this project, so I'm just gonna start over. So I basically took the original drawing and then just made the outer pieces of the frame and the sides longer so that it would have feet. but I decided to reuse the sides of the first version. Now, if you remember, I glued 2 pieces together for those sides, and I needed those extra 44 centimeters to have the fabric be far enough away from the radiator. So instead of trying to pry the 2 glue pieces apart, I used it as a decorative piece instead. I just turn it around and have it stick out on the sides. This did mean that I needed to replicate it for the other covers. So here I am gluing those pieces together, although it looks a little bit weird because I am doing both sides at exactly the same time. Then I took it outside, gave everything a very quick sand. I also smoothed out the edges just a little bit so that they weren't as harsh, as square. And then I took a little bit of a break to throw a ball with Fox for a while. Good morning, guys. It is a dark and rainy day today, which actually makes the house look extra cozy, so I am not complaining this time. I did 2 coats of paint yesterday on the frame, and so today I can actually get started on the fabric, putting the fabric on. So I'm simply cutting it a little bit bigger than the hole that it has to cover, and then folding over the edges before stapling all of them in, just pulling it tight on all sides as much as I can. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's not complicated, and this is what it looks like now. And I am so glad that I actually went for new wood and did the actual design that I had in my head. I did add the feet, so it's a little bit different from what I drew at the beginning of the video, but I do think this looks really good. There's one tiny issue that I have with it because I am never just satisfied, and that is the color. I do think it's a little bit too white. The thing is, I still had a whole can of this white left, which was special for wood, so I thought that would be nice. Although my original plan was to paint it the same color as the wall. The thing is, I don't have that color anymore, because at some point I decided that I didn't want to continue with this color, and in the kitchen I used a different white. So I thought this would be a nice solution for now. It is also the same paint that I will eventually be painting all of the windows in, so the wood of the windows is going to be that same white color, so maybe then it will look good together. But I figured I'm going to leave it anyway until I've done the curtains, because next week I want to add curtains to these windows, and I'm so curious what that's going to look like. I have been missing curtains here this whole time since we've lived here, and I think it's going to add so much more warmth and texture and interest to this corner here. And I'm only going to do it on these 2 windows just as a test, and then I can always continue on with all of the other windows. So yeah, all in all, I think this was a successful project. is not the first video that you've seen of me, you know that knitting is one of my biggest hobbies at the moment, and I'm currently knitting a sweater for Stefan. So I have got this beautiful Finnish sheep wool that I'm working with, which I am absolutely loving, but I do have some thoughts on this project. I am using a bottom-up pattern, and I think I've discovered that I absolutely hate bottom-up patterns. So if you're not familiar, this means that you're starting your sweater at the bottom hem and then work your way up to the neckline. Whereas with a top-down sweater, you're starting at the neckline, and then as you go, you can try it on. You can see that the shoulders don't fit. You can unravel it, start again. And then as you're doing the length of the sweater, you can adjust the length as long as you want, because that is, you know, you're working your way down. But with a bottom-up sweater, nope. You're basically just knitting a mystery tube all the way up to the neckline, and then you try it on and you hope that the shoulders fit when you're like 97% done. So love that, big fan. We'll probably not be doing that again anytime soon. But the good news is that I'm almost done. I am working on the sleeves right now. That's also the bad news. So I'm working on the sleeves. The worst news is that it is slightly too short. So when I am done with the sleeves, I get to go back to the bottom hem, unravel a whole chunk of it, and then make it longer. Yeah, so I think I prefer top-down patterns. But then also in my last video, a lot of you left really nice comments about this sweater that I was wearing, which is really sweet because this is also one that I spent weeks on, so. Now this one is knit top down, but this has another little quirk, which is you're basically just knitting a circle all the way up to here. It's just going to be one big circle, flat circle. And then once you reach like this point, you will attach certain pieces, and that creates the armholes, and then, you know, you can continue knitting. The problem with this particular pattern for that is that there is no shaping in the shoulders or the neckline at all. It doesn't have a front or a back. It's just completely symmetrical, which our bodies are not. So usually you can see it with this one. When you hold it up, you will see that the front of the neckline is lower than the back side, because that is how our bodies are built. This one doesn't have that, so it is always kind of trying to choke me. Sometimes I'm constantly pulling it like this, you know. So that is also something that I now know for the future, is that this type of pattern doesn't work for me. I really need some kind of shaping in the back, which this one does have. I know what to look for now. I am definitely still learning. I'm a beginner. This is my 4th sweater. I've also done a pair of socks and I never finished it. It just doesn't really work for me. Oh, also I don't like how I finished off this collar here. It's not supposed to be like this. I think I might just unravel that and have it lay flat the way it's supposed to be, because this like standing up little thing, it's a little weird. As the very typically Dutch fall weather continues with its misty, dreary and rainy days, I like to start cooking with what I think are very fallish ingredients as much as I can, and today we are having Witlof. Endives, or Witlof as they're called here in the Netherlands, are a very common winter vegetable here, but as I understand it, they are less popular in the US. And as many of you come from the United States, I thought this was an interesting little bit to share with you, because I actually think This is a fascinating vegetable. I have very strange fascinations. They belong to the chicory family. In fact, they come from exactly the same plant. So it is first grown outdoors like a normal vegetable, and then they harvest the leafy chicory that you may know, and then the roots are harvested as well, but they are regrown indoors or outside but covered with a tarp in complete darkness. So that second growth actually produces the endive, and because they never see the sunlight, the leaves stay white and tender instead of turning green and bitter. Now, they've been grown this way in the Netherlands and Belgium for generations, so they're a very familiar sight here. They're often baked in the oven with some ham and cheese, which is very good. I, however, am making them my way today, which is braised in orange juice. I will leave the recipe below, of course. Put them in a pot with a little bit of water, some salt, and then orange zest and orange juice, and then I let them braise for about 15 minutes or so until they are tender but not mushy. The orange brings out the natural sweetness of the endive and at the same time kind of softens that slight bitterness that they're known for. Then I serve them with some potatoes that have been cooking on the stove at the same time as the endives, and a piece of chicken that I just put in the oven at the same time as well, which makes this a very quick but very lovely meal. This sweater, you guys. Oh. So it's pretty much done, pretty much. As I said, it was too short, so I made it longer. I finished all that off. That's perfect. It's the right length now. So it's pretty much done. It fits really well. But I made a mistake on the sleeve, and one of the sleeves is now wider than the other one, which means I'm gonna have to unravel that sleeve for the second time and redo it, which is going to cost me another day or two. So lovely. This project has been interesting. I have a pattern in mind that I want to start after this, and I'm really getting impatient to start with that. So I just want to finish this. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching again, and hopefully I will see you all again next week when this sweater is actually finished. Bye, guys.